This movie right here is exactly why I stopped going to see horror movies in theaters. So, Smile 2 has been out for, I want to say, about 1-2 weeks, and it's slowly making its rounds between everybody as they currently go to see it. It's a sequel to the previous movie Smile, but in this movie, I would say it's pretty much on a larger scale. Now, I've never actually sat down and watched the first movie, but I do understand about what the Smile Demon is, what happens in the first movie. So, going from a girl who's experiencing this inside of a mental facility to a high profile pop star is pretty interesting. In the second movie, we follow Sky Riley, who is a very popular pop star singer, who ends up getting infected by the Smile Demon after witnessing her friend Lewis kill himself. Throughout the movie, she has to try to figure out what's real and what's not, why people keep smiling at her. When she gets approached by a guy who says that all they have to do is stop her heart and bring her back to get rid of the demon. While this movie does have its flaws, I do really appreciate how they went about everything, and I feel like they did a very good job at the psychological horror effect of this movie. The general consensus of the first Smile is that it was a decent movie, so getting a sequel that is just as good, if not better, is great in my book. If you haven't gotten tickets to go see Smile 2, I definitely do recommend it. So we're going to be going through my experience watching the movie, some notes that I took while I was watching it. This is going to be your spoiler warning. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. From this point on, there are spoilers. So I thought the opening of the movie was actually really interesting. We start 6 days after the events of the first movie with one of the detectives from the first movie. Now, he has been infected because I believe at the end of the first movie he watched the main girl die, and that's how he got infected. So now he kind of has this plan to pass this demon off to criminals so that he doesn't necessarily feel bad about them dying from the demon. But of course, nothing goes to plan, and he accidentally passes it to a guy named Lewis. Lewis is just some random kid who's buying drugs off of these people. So everything just starts falling apart, bunch of gunfires going off everywhere, and he runs out the door into the street and eventually gets plowed by a truck. Was not gonna lie, whenever I first watched the trailer, for some reason I thought Naomi Scott's character was the one that got hit by the truck. Also, another thing that I really like about this intro is as he's walking to the house, no sound, no jump scare or anything, just on the side of the screen is the burning body of the main character from the first Smile movie. It catches you off guard a little bit, so I really like that. I also kind of wish that they didn't show the truck in the trailers because I feel like it would have hit harder if people didn't know that it was coming. But the way that they linger on the blood stain from the body, I mean, you even see his foot is just completely taken off of his body and all of his guts are under the truck. It is genuinely insane, and even though I knew what was gonna happen, it did still hit a little bit. But like I said, I feel like it would have hit people harder if they didn't know it was coming. Moving on to something random that I put in my notes because I do that sometimes. Drew Barrymore appears in this movie, not for very long, and she's not a very specific character. In fact, she just plays herself. I love that Drew Barrymore's in this because she's honestly a horror icon. The only context we get of Drew Barrymore is that Sky Riley is going on an interview on her show, and she's just talking about her coming back after experiencing this trauma that she did, which the trauma was actually a car accident that we later find out she caused. She was in a car with her and her then boyfriend. They were both high and drunk, and that's why they got into a car accident. And he eventually died because of it. And she got very badly injured, almost near death. But now she's back and talking to Drew Barrymore. We eventually get little tidbits of the aftermath of this accident and how she currently lives with her injuries. She has a lot of back pain because she has a giant scar going down the backside and the front side of her from this accident. But because she is a recovering drug addict, nobody wants to prescribe her anything for the pain higher than Tylenol. So what she usually does is go to Lewis to try to get Vicodin. This time, whenever she goes to the apartment, something is very wrong. Lewis, we already know, is infected with the Smile Demon. So whenever Sky gets there, he pulls her in and holds a sword up to her throat, not even remembering that he told her to come over. Lewis starts going crazy, goes into his room to go retrieve something, and runs out screaming at thin air. Sky is obviously very terrified and freaking out before eventually watching Lewis stand up very slowly, wave a big smile at her, and pick up a bench press weight and slam it against his head. Now, we already knew that Lewis was going to die. We saw the hit in the trailer. Lewis's death starts my very conflicting thoughts about the scares in this movie. This movie, when it comes to its scares, does a very specific technique that I learned about a while ago. The best way to scare people inside of a movie theater is to just play a very loud noise. Usually, in previous horror movies, as I have found out, whenever they do this, it's usually followed by some stupid looking face or some boogeyman or whatever. It's something that really isn't that scary. This movie does the loud noise jump scare. But what follows the loud noise jump scare is some of the most unsettling shit I've ever seen in my life. Lewis's death is the only way I can describe Lewis's death is harsh. The first hit scares you, but then after this first hit, he just slowly brings the weight down and comes up with the same harshness with that weight. And he does this about 5 times. But after each pull, you can see his face literally start falling apart. And that's what makes it good. This is the moment where I realized, okay, the effects are top notch, which means any scare that they try to do, even if it doesn't hit very well, it's going to get me. If you want to have a cheesy jump scare sound, do the cheesy jump scare sound, but make sure that you are following through with whatever is coming after that. And this movie knew the fucking mark. So obviously after witnessing the death, which is the rule of the smile demon, that's how you get infected, Skye refuses to call the cops because it's probably not a good idea for a previous drug addict to be found in a room with a bunch of coke around her and a dead guy on the floor. So this is the moment where she gets infected. So from this point on, you start seeing smiling people everywhere. Throughout the movie, Skye eventually just loses her mind. She's seeing things that other people aren't. She doesn't know what's real and what's not. Not to mention the outside pressures of fame and her mother, who is only caring about her tour that she's supposed to go on and not necessarily thinking about her mental health. So eventually she calls her best friend Gemma, who ended things on bad terms, but now they're gonna try to reconnect. Skye apologized for the way that she spoke to her previously, asked Gemma to come over, and she does. Once Gemma appears, she does pretty much stick around for the rest of the movie-ish. If anything, she's supposed to be more of a comic relief character. So Gemma stays the night in order to soothe Skye's craziness, and then she wakes up in the morning, continues life, starts seeing the smile demon more. That's pretty much how the middle of the movie goes. It's just increasingly getting more and more weird and scary. They're building up. Something that I didn't write down, and I really wish that I did, that I noticed throughout the movie was the cinematography. I don't know if cinematography is the word for it, but the way that they choose to move the camera. There's a lot of what seems like one-shot takes, where the camera is either following Skye, or it does this thing where it swings over here, and then swings back, and then swings over here, and it does that, and it's so good. It honestly makes everything so much more interesting. Because you never know what's gonna be on the other side as soon as the camera turns back. Now, getting towards the end of the movie, there is a point where nothing you see is real. But what's great about this point is that you never know when that is. This movie's writing is actually very smooth in its progression into insanity and the psychological horror that is coming. I'm usually pretty good at noting whenever things seem a little bit too weird or, this is a twist that is happening or whatever. But maybe it was just because I hadn't seen the first movie that I just couldn't tell what was going on and if something was real. To me, it just flowed together so nicely. So Skye eventually does agree to this plan of stopping her heart and being brought back to get rid of this demon. She's completely tired of how the demon has been treating her and just fucking going at her, and she can tell that she's losing her mind more and more and more. It also probably has something to do with the fact that the demon made her kill her mother. That's probably why. So she runs out of the hospital that she's in after killing her mom and taking a security guard's gun, just running outside, stepping on a glass bottle because of fucking course she has to. When Jenna is outside saying her mom told her to meet her at the hospital, and she just immediately is like, Gemma, get the fuck in the car. This is when we find out that Gemma hasn't fucking been around the entire movie. The Gemma that we've been seeing has in fact been the demon the entire time. When this happened, I immediately lost my mind. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's real. I don't know what's going to happen. But I buckled in and I sat down for the ride. So eventually Skye drives to this abandoned Pizza Hut to meet up with Morris, the guy who is supposed to be conducting this little experiment. They get inside the freezer with the medical equipment, and Morris leaves. That's right, brother. Morris never fucking existed. I know I'm saying this a lot, but from this point is when everything has just been thrown out the window, and she is not going to survive. Of course, the demon comes after her, actually in the form of her. Skye grabs the needle that has the injection in it to stop her heart, sticks it in her side of her neck, and realizes that it's not real. None of it was real. Where she actually is, instead of being in a freezer in an abandoned Pizza Hut, is on stage, ready for her tour. Thousands of people in the audience, including her mom, when eventually the Smile Demon does what it does well, comes out of another version of her, literally, makes its way inside of her, and then eventually she kills herself in front of all of these fans. I didn't exactly like how the ending was going to be. I was hoping there would be at least a little bit of a glimpse of hope for her, since we already kind of established in the first movie that their attempt didn't work, but it does leave me with questions. And also, they can't make a third movie after this. Like, no, you can't do it. I would be completely okay with the Smile film franchise being left off at 2. The experience of Smile 2 has left an imprint, a fucking burn imprint in my brain. And I definitely regret going alone to see it. When I got out of this movie, I was in my car crying, talking to my boyfriend because I didn't trust anybody I saw around me. Which is so crazy to say. Genuinely, this is a good horror movie. I'm not going to say it's a great horror movie because there are things that I personally enjoyed that other people might say, that's kind of sucky, or that's cheesy, or it's just not for other people. And that's completely understandable. Like I said, with the scares are cheesy jump scares. I personally like them because they have just the weirdest images after. Also, before I end this, I do want to say, Naomi Scott, you need these. These are yours. You can have them. I am a lover and a watcher of Lemonade Mouth, and I love Naomi Scott in the first place, but this movie, she topped any other performance that I have seen. If you don't like horror movies, or you don't like cheesy jump scares, or you think it's gonna be stupid, at least go see this movie for her acting. The visceral sounds and pain that you hear from her, I've never heard anybody else make. There's a scene where it shows the car accident happening, and when she wakes up, it's just you can feel the hurt because she immediately starts scream crying. And as somebody who unfortunately has been in a car accident, I know what that sound is. After they played like the fancy sparkly credits of the movie and it starts rolling the normal credits of the movie, they played this sound over the credits. By this time, the lights were on in the theater, yeah, but I was by myself. And I tried to stand and listen to it, but I couldn't. I ran out of that movie theater. But those are my notes for Smile 2. My official rating for this movie is going to be an 8 out of 10. This is genuinely just a really good film. Even if you don't like horror movies or you just think it's gonna be stupid, like I said earlier, just go see this. Matinees are cheaper. Just do a matinee if you don't want to spend a bunch of money on a movie ticket, because honestly, movie theaters are really fucking expensive these days. But let me know what other movie or video game you want me to cover next. I'm completely open to any suggestions, even if it's something that isn't horror movies. I know that's kind of what I've been doing on this channel. I guess that's what I get for starting close to the Halloween season. But after all that, this is Scythe Reviews. My name is Scythe, and thank you so much for watching. Also, quit CGIing phones in movies. Just let them use a real fucking phone. It looks stupid.